right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Something Super Podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
I'm Jay.
So, guys, this week we are going to cover the newest, hottest TV series coming out of Disney Plus from the Marvel Universe, Phase 4, Loki.
Oh, wasn't Big Shot?
No, it was not Big Shots.
Damn it.
However,
God
if you wanna-
Stamos.
Yeah, John Stamos. I do love me some John Stamos. But if we want to cover sports stuff, we can absolutely do a Mighty Ducks episode because that was a phenomenal series, and that's a callback to my childhood. All right, so guys, coming right out the gate, I'm going to say it. Everyone's going to deny it. I don't care. I don't even care if Kevin Feige says it's wrong. We got Mephisto in this. That ties all three of these together. I can't make a funny tagline like I did for, Mephisto and the Winter Mephisto because it's just Loki, but the devil's in this shit. Let's get it.
So how does it tie Captain Winter Soldier in?
Because it's Mephisto and the Winter Mephisto, and I said so, and that's just, that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm riding the train until it's off the tracks. It's killed a bunch of people, just like the Avengers have. I'm cool with it. Let's make it happen. I know it's not real. Just let me live my life, all right?
Okay.
All right, so, guys, there was a million Easter eggs in this. I loved it. But before we dive into the Easter eggs, guys, I want to hear your just, genuine, right off the bat thoughts of, front to back, what did you think of the first episode, and what do you think about the series?
So, me personally, I'm hyped for it. It's going to be, literally, it took 10 minutes for them to basically say, yo, everything you've seen in the first 3 phases doesn't mean shit. Literally, they use Infinity Stones as paperweights. So, we sat there and we watched, 22 movies that build up the end game.
Yep.
That all revolved around these stones that literally the show Loki just straight up trashed.
Yeah. Yes and no. So the Infinity Stones work within the timeline that they were created, and the TVA works to basically shut down other timelines. So outside of their own timeline, they are technically a paperweight, which I believe we actually had a conversation about immediately following the episode. But that being said, it does show that the TVA is OP as fuck. Let's call it what it is.
No, and that's what I mean. Literally, the fact that the one thing that I love is when Loki first goes into the TVA. I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but when he's holding the Tesseract, it glows really bright, like when they're in the desert. As soon as they go into the TVA, it goes so dim, and that's because they say no magic can be used, which that kind of upset me a little bit when they were saying that during Loki's trial, because I was really hoping that the prison guard thing around their neck they was wearing was the dampener from X-Men, and that was going to be a subtle tie-in for how they're going to bring them in down the road. But I just like how literally they come back to everyone just makes a fool of Loki. When he's in the trial and he's trying to use his powers, he's just 1 second, it's coming to me. And they're looking around, they're like, what's he doing? And she's like, he's trying to use his powers. It's like watching a toddler try to walk for the first time.
Well, I think what that does, at least for me, and it's obviously just my opinion on it, but it really puts into perspective that Loki thinks he is this all-powerful being that's going to control the world, and he has glorious purpose, the title of the episode, that he is supposed to enslave humanity. Now we have to remember this is immediately after the first Avengers movie. This is not Endgame Loki that realizes that he's probably not going to enslave the world and he's actually a good guy.
He's dead.
Yeah, he is
DED, dead.
Goddamn right he is. And this is Loki that's still hell-bent on control and power and all this other shit. He hasn't had his arc yet. So what I think personally maybe this entire series is going to do is this is the timeline between Avengers, and then they're going to end up dropping him off in Sakaar for the battle royale shit with Jeff Goldblum.
So you think that's how he got the Sakaar before?
I think that's how he gets there. And I think that they drop him off there because he won't be involved in the Earth matters anymore. They're not just going to put him back. His mother dies. Maybe they put him back immediately, where they picked him up. Boom, you left fucking Avengers Tower. You're going right back to Avengers Tower like nothing ever happened. We're going to call it a day. We're going to fix all the shit that went wrong. Maybe he does make a subtle nod to the fact that he's not at fault here. It's the Avengers. Like he says, I can smell the cologne of 2 Tony Starks.
Dude, I love that line.
He's aware that there are more than one Tony Starks in the building at the current moment. So he knows what's going on, or at least kind of knows what's going on. And he makes reference to it, but he's trying to explain to them, like, this isn't me, guys. Like, it's not my fault. I swear to God, I didn't do anything. They fucked it up. But
well, the whole thing with him is he doesn't see the bigger picture. He thinks that they go back. Like he broke down that there was a time heist, but he thinks they did it to stop him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't realize they did it to stop Thanos.
Correct.
So even then, he's like, yeah, he says it twice, something along the lines of like the weak conjure fear to control the strong or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like you learn later on that like he was actually talking about himself, which is actually a big reveal because like if you go back and you watch like the first Thor movie and the first Avengers, like Loki seems like a very confident person who doesn't like, yes, he's insecure with himself in the fact that like he doesn't live up to Thor. But he doesn't seem to be like insecure to the point to where he sees himself as like a weakling.
Sure. Well, and then you have to look. So he's got a tough childhood. First of all, he's adopted into basically the most powerful family shy of like the Eternals. And his sister Hela, who is the fucking goddess of death. I mean, you see everything he has is basically mirrored from her. His clothing, his outlook on life, his straight demeanor, like it is modeled after Hela because she is the oldest. Then there's Thor, who's the good one, and obviously they chose black hair and blonde hair to show that the vast difference between their two personalities. And then Loki, I mean, for Christ's sake, you would think Thor's the fucking adopted brother. Yeah, out of the 3 of them, like he looks like none of his fucking siblings.
Right.
So I think that's a huge thing that he, like you said, he knows that he's less powerful than Thor. He has to know he's less powerful than Hela. I mean, Christ, they wield the same damn weapons. They're both blade people. They both have like the fucking pop out of nowhere fucking spiky helmets and shit. Like, I'm cool with that. That's awesome. I'm all about it.
Now, the one thing I always get confused of is, they didn't know about Hela, did they? Not until Ragnarok. Because that's when Odin tells them you have a sister.
Okay. I mean, maybe Loki.
Again, no, I'm not saying he's not modeled after her, because obviously his clothing came from somewhere, and the green and gold and the spiked horned helmet and all that. But either way, yeah, like.
Well, I mean, we have to also take
clearly the weakest.
Yeah. So Loki's been around for fucking ever. Thor's been around forever. At no point in time did Loki ever like read a book and maybe see a picture of Hela and was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And like, just kind of model himself after that. I don't know. What was the,
See, my assumption was she's kind of like wiped from the Asgardian history. Like they covered up all the paintings on the ceiling that had her. I mean, so that would be my guess.
But that doesn't mean that people don't know she exists.
Right.
Like it could have been possible that like someone mentioned something along the lines of Hela in a fucking fairy tale they were telling him as a kid. I don't fucking know. I'm just saying that it is an odd coincidence that green and black happen to be both of their colors. They both got the slick back fucking black hair. They both got the spiky helmet. Like, it's just a very odd coincidence. And maybe that was Marvel's go-to from the beginning. It was just like an easy thing to, disassociate them from Thor.
Right.
Because they're both evil. They both have the same look. Boom, boom, boom. We're making it easy. But again, as the adopted kid, he's got a lot more to prove.
Right. And I mean,
he's not the next, he's not the heir to the throne, even though he wants to be.
I mean, me personally, I think it's all front right now, what he's showing to kind of like play along. Because as they reveal, apparently who they're hunting is a variant of Loki, who I said it before, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being Lady Loki, which they're doing a little bit different from the comics. Because the way Lady Loki comes about in the comics is actually kind of funny if you know the story behind her. But what I'm thinking is, though, I'm thinking the Lady Loki, like that's who that was at the end of the episode that burns all the TVA agents. but I'm thinking that she's going to be kind of like a Zemo kind of a character. Like, I don't think she's the big bad. I think there's a darker version of Loki that she's kind of like working for. So I think there's multiple Lokis working for one ultimately evil one.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with that. So for me, at least, like you said, you know, and we've talked about this since the day of the episode. Loki is gender fluid. He is whatever he wants to be. Is a trickster. He can shapeshift and do whatever the fuck he wants. I mean, for Christ's sake, in Thor, he pokes a piece of paper. He has the fucking umbrella and he pokes the paper and he's like, Loki, is that you?
Dude,
Or
that is one of my favorite Marvel moments out of any movie is the fact that he really thinks Loki turned into a piece of trash on the New York street.
but I mean, then like he tells the story. It's like Loki turned into a snake. He knows I love snakes. I picked it up and then he shapeshifted and stabbed me. Like that's fucking hilarious. And like that's why I like them so well together because they play well off of each other.
And the fact that he is B.D. Cooper because he lost a bet to Thor.
Yes. Yeah.
So the fact
Cooper
that
thing
like
is fucking amazing.
And see, what one thing I love about that is it goes back and it reminds you to like what a dick Thor used to be.
Yeah.
Like
Here,
100%.
Go be this person. It's hilarious. But Jay, go ahead. Give me your thoughts and opinions on at least the first episode and maybe what you think about, you know, other episodes that are coming up.
You guys kind of covered everything I thought of.
Okay.
And
well, I mean, give me your opinion then. Like, what did you think of it?
I enjoyed the show. It was a little slow for me to start, but at the same time, like all of the shows have always been a slow starters. They're not like immediately jump into action.
Well, I mean, this is a show that's going to be dealing with time travel, which is confusing in itself. So, like, you can't just dive right in. You got to kind of, especially with the way that Marvel's handling time travel, because, like they explained in Endgame, like, you can't go back in time and change the future because when you go back in time, that's technically your future.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, but right there with you though, Jay. Like, I get it was a slow start. And they actually drop a lot of information on you. But the thing is, if you don't read the comics, you don't realize that they drop that much info on you. Like they reference the war between the Krees and the oh God, who was it?
The Kree and the Nova Corps?
Yeah, the Kree and the Nova Corps. And in the background, there's like the 5-pointed spaceship. It looks like they're on
Titan.
Yep. So, and I mean, Ronan the Accuser even mentions that they were at war for like 1,000 years. So like, could that have been the multiverse, part of the multiverse war that they're talking about? And I mean, I really think that this is going to be the one that sets up Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had the dabbling of it with WandaVision just because of the Nexus events and the Nexus being, etc. And you know, all the magic and like that's awesome. I'm all about it. And obviously Agatha mentions the Sorcerer Supreme. Like, so there are Doctor Strange things in there, but I think this, because it's one of the closest series to the actual release of Doctor Strange, this is going to be like the final setup. And again, it's weird that like, I don't know the exact timeline of it yet because they haven't really said like, oh, this happens exactly at this point or this happens exactly at this point. We know they're after Endgame, and that's really about it.
Right.
So,
and we know he's from Earth 616, which is like the central, like the Earth Prime for you DC fans. Like, but one thing I wanted to ask you guys, because obviously now we're seeing Marvel's really letting their actors like act.
Oh, absolutely.
So which did you think was more powerful? Watching the scene with Sebastian Stan, where he's finally freed in Wakanda from the Winter Soldier program, or Loki while he's watching his life events play out with Tom Hiddleston? Who do you think had like a more impactful actual, like, just their performance? Because both of them go through a ton of emotions without literally saying a word.
So it's both of them hit different. I mean, it's going to be a tough call for me because I think both of them were phenomenal. Now, we'll start with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Obviously, Bucky Barnes. He has an internal struggle, which is things that he's done in the past that he regrets and is now atoning for. Whereas Loki is regretting actions he's done that caused other events that negatively affected him. He doesn't care that he stabbed someone and ripped their eye out so that he could get a retina scan. Like, he doesn't give a shit about that. He cares that he attempted to murder his brother and accidentally murdered his mom. He knows he's going to die. He knows that everything he has worked for his entire life, however millions of years, or thousands, whatever, tens of thousands of years he's been alive, has been for naught because he does not achieve his quote unquote glorious purpose. So this Loki that we're seeing, again, you have to take note that it is the first Avengers Loki. It's not Endgame Loki. It's not good guy Loki. He still has so much more growth and so much more shit that he thinks he has to do when he realizes end of film. Like, this is the end. You're done after this. And he's like, well, fuck. That's it. Like, this is all I've accomplished. And like, he obviously only sees certain things. He doesn't see all the highlights, you know? So he only realizes, and Owen Wilson says it, you lose a lot. So Loki realizes that he is going to lose in the long run. Whereas Bucky realizes that he's got so much more to live for. And he thinks that what he has done is wrong. Loki doesn't think what he's done is wrong yet. So that's where they differ drastically.
What about you, Jay? What did you think of like just that scene and Tom Hiddleston's performance in it compared to how we've seen him playing Loki before?
I think he crushed it. He just, I don't know. He conveyed how the emotions he should have, seeing his whole life just before his eyes and that realizing like he made the mistake and like he's not going to be the, what the hell's the word he's looking for? The greater purpose thing?
Glorious purpose.
Glorious purpose. His glorious purpose ends with Thanos putting a knife through his chest.
Breaks his neck.
Thanos snaps his neck.
Oh, I thought he stabbed him.
No, Loki tried to
stab
Stark.
Oh, that makes sense. I forget a lot of things. I have a bad memory.
Yeah, but like you said, Steve, like this isn't that same like turn the corner Loki. So what I'm wondering is whether he sees like, okay, originally my plan ended with me getting killed by Thanos. So clearly I didn't make the right moves. Now I'm going to kind of play by the rules with the TVA, infiltrate them from within, and maybe I can use the TVA in the timeline to accomplish everything. And that's where I'm wondering if that's like the turn it's going to take.
Yeah, I think initially, so, and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, this is going to be day one, week one theory from Steve right here. His intention originally is to change the future to not die.
Right.
And then after working with the TVA, working with Owen Wilson, working with, you know, all of these people and interacting with all these things he's going to interact with throughout the entire series, by the end, he's going to realize that he needs to keep the timeline the way it is, and he has to die in order for the world to continue on the way it is.
Nope.
Fuck you.
We need Loki. Tom Hiddleston needs to come back.
Oh, no, I don't disagree. I love Loki. I think it's awesome. Maybe they'll get a time variant, or maybe this will be where the multiverse comes in and they can pull another Loki, or this can be a Loki from another universe, like whatever the case is, but he has to die. It sucks. But that's his, you know, his thing. And I mean, fuck it. Look at Natasha, Loki, Vision, fucking Gamora, all dead. Dead.
I just want to, I'll take a Loki or a Natasha back. That's it. That's all we need. Tony could stay dead.
Well, we're not friends anymore.
Good.
So I'd also want to bring up, again, a couple Easter eggs I wanted to dive into before we, you know, get too crazy here. One of the big things when they arrive at the TVA, there's a scroll at the front desk, which is awesome because they would be one of the more, I guess, in my opinion, one of the more common people that would have to work there because you got to travel through time and you have to assimilate to the time that you're in. So who better than a shape-shifting person, right?
Loki.
That's why they get him to work for them.
Well, I mean, Loki. The only reason why I think they get Loki to work for them is because they're hunting Loki.
Right. Who better to hunt you?
A version.
Well, yeah, but it's still, I mean, so Loki is Loki, whether he looks like Loki or he looks like anyone else. Like, he's still Loki, whether he's a piece of paper or a snake.
Loki.
Ready, really quick. Did either of you guys, this is just something I was thinking about, like when I was watching, did either of you guys, once they like were in the TVA, kind of get an Umbrella Academy type of a feel?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, oh, like here's some time traveling cops that got to keep the timeline intact and got to do this, and that. I was like, I don't know if it's literally because I just got done watching Umbrella Academy that like it's so fresh in my mind, but like, that was the first thing I thought of was like, okay, this is going to be kind of cool with that.
Yeah, and what I also like again, and I wanted to mention this as well, that's close to the Umbrella Academy is none of their like they don't have Stark tech, they don't have Wakanda tech, they have like 1970s tech. Like that's the fanciest shit they got. They got like tube TVs and fucking typewriters
and one creepy ass computer that strips you.
Yeah, just burned them.
If Jay was a computer.
Gets that undressing me with your eyes.
It like smiles and then it gives like a quick like it's like right eye like twitches and then he's like smirking at him as he's getting ready to do it. But
why do you think I'm so crazy or something that I would just burn people's clothes off? That's just rude.
Dude, you literally went on a rant about how you would slaughter every other Sith just so you could be the most powerful one.
Yeah, you can't. Hey, listen, even if you're the weakest Sith, if everyone else is dead, you're number one.
But not to take you off course with the Easter eggs. What else you got for us, Steve? What else did you notice?
There's a lot of shit. So a callback to one of the original. It's a Marvel reference. Josta Cola, which was actually in the early '90s a
discontinued
Pepsi
soda.
Yeah, it was made by Pepsi, but I mean, it's not super strict on Marvel, but like it was a Marvel thing for a little while in the '90s.
Honestly, that's one thing with time travel that like in all the conversations I've had with people about time travel, one thing I've never thought of is like you could just go back in time and have like food that's not there anymore, got discontinued, like sodas and candy and stuff. Like I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, if I had the ability to time travel, there's a few things I would love to do, but like definitely try foods that don't exist anymore. That's super high up there because I'm a foodie. Gotta love my traveling and my food, man. Like that's where I'm at. They brought back 3D Doritos, so I'm all about it.
The little poppers.
So I guess as far as, Easter eggs, we'll drop them as we go along, but like what are a few future predictions, I guess would be the easiest thing. What do you predict for either the next episode or for the series itself?
My next episode prediction is Loki finds the variant Loki. They get into a fight and she whoops Tom Hiddleston's ass, or it whoops Tom Hiddleston's ass.
I could definitely see something like that. And that's usually how they go. Like,
yep.
But something for me is in the trailer, there's the Loki that's the president.
Yes.
I'm wondering if that's not our Loki. I'm wondering if that's going to be one of the variants. Because, like, he does have, like, the different helmet. It's more like, it's kind of like Scarlet Witch's, like, kind of like little headdress she has, but has, like, the two shorter horns. To where Loki, like, our Loki has, like, the big round ones. Like the traditional Loki horn. So I'm wondering if that's not our Loki. That's one that we meet along the way. Or if he's impersonating, like, another Loki. And that's why, like, all the people turn on him in the trailer, like they all point their weapons at him.
Yeah, so I think what would be cool, again, obviously we know DB Cooper was our Loki that we're talking about, the 616 Loki, but I think that every other Loki that they showed us in the trailer, like they made you think like this is Loki working for the TVA, doing his thing, going out, but I think all of the other ones are just variants. And again, I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I think it would be cool to see Loki develop his character based around the adventures that he's been on, and that's why he is the way he is in Sakaar.
Right.
But that being said, if the other ones are variants, like that would make a ton of sense because this is the multiverse. We're getting into the multiverse theory here, jumping into Doctor Strange, the multiverse of madness. Like they make a Nexus event reference in the TVA's like little cartoon video.
Miss Minutes.
Yes. Super excited. So there's a lot going on. I love not the trailer, the poster for it. Like everyone is super serious. Everyone is real. It's live action, and then you got in like the tiny corners, just a little Miss Minutes clock cartoon. I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I like it.
So something that I think, like, Jay, I'm definitely agreeing with you. Like, I don't know if it's gonna be in the next episode or if the next episode is gonna be a little bit more setup and probably end with a little bit of action. But I definitely think though that the Loki that was in the field, I think that they're going to go Lady Loki. Which, do either of you guys know? Like, they're obviously going to probably give her a different origin. Well, actually, if they're going multiverse, they may not give her a different origin. But do either of you know the origin of Lady Loki?
I do not, off the top of my head. Like, I don't know where it came from. I know of the character, but
So basically, what happened was in the Thor comics, Ragnarok happens, which you guys both know the story of Ragnarok. Like, everyone dies, all of Asgard. So what happens is all the Asgardian souls are kind of just like floating around out in like the ether, waiting for bodies like to go and like take over so that they can, pretty much come back. So what happens is a body gets made for Lady Sif. So to fuck with Thor, Loki actually like knocks her soul out of the way and jumps into the body. So like Thor thinks it's Lady Sif reincarnated, but it's really Loki. So that's Lady Loki. So it's basically just a whole ploy just to fuck with Thor.
I'm about it. Literally what Loki does. That's his secondary job.
So I think either one, like they established Loki's gender is fluid, and the fact that his last name isn't Loki Odinson, it's Loki Laufeyson. And it has his species as the
ice giant?
Yeah, as ice giant. So it's kind of cool because it's like they know more about him than like he does at this point. And for me, I definitely think it's gonna be Lady Loki, and I think she's gonna end up teaming up with Loki, kind of like how you had Thor and Valkyrie. I think you're gonna have Loki and Lady Loki teaming up to fight. Either one, the big bad is actually gonna be Nightmare because he's a big Doctor Strange villain, and and Loki even says like this place is a nightmare. No, and Wilson's like, no, that's a different department, and I'll help you burn that one down. So like,
that's funny. So
either one, they're gonna set up Nightmare, which I know everyone's like, oh, Mephisto, but Mephisto. I could definitely see Nightmare coming up and at least maybe ending it, revealing him, and that's what leads into Doctor Strange. And then it's Nightmare using Wanda to kind of. That's how Wanda becomes the villain there, maybe. But I think that's going to be one of the two big bads. It's either going to be like the most evil you can get Loki that's a variant, or it's going to be like Nightmare. And that's what I'm thinking. But we'll see. I mean, there's a lot that could go on. But I just really liked how, like, with all of the, like, Infinity Stones, like, they're useless there. And like you said, Steve, and for those of you who read the comics, like they only work in their universe. So I'm guessing that means that the TVA is, I guess, outside of our space and time, as opposed to Umbrella Academy, to where it's stationed in like 1950.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is it stationed in 19? Because like there's no proof that it's like stationed there. But again, like there's a whole world outside the TVA.
But they have a talking fish.
Yeah, well, I'm only going off that because in Umbrella Academy, like when they first, I forget which one it is, one of the times, like when they go in the building, like all the cars are styled after the 1950s and everything like that. And it looks like it's like it looks like it's a real grounded place.
Sure.
That's just passed off as like a business building.
It could be. Again, I think.
But I could be wrong.
Well, look at it like this. If it was there in the 1950s, it would be their current day.
Right.
So it could be a place out of time, and that's why they have to use those like jump boxes, like the briefcases.
And that's what I'm thinking, because even she even says in Umbrella Academy that like when the board meetings meet, they always meet at a different time in a different location.
Mm-hmm.
So like they jump through time. So maybe that's what the timekeepers in Umbrella Academy do. But I don't want to get too far off topic from Loki. But I mean, I definitely think that this is going to be like 100% one of the biggest shows. I mean, Kevin Feige, I'll see if I can find it, but I know Kevin Feige straight up said that like this is going to have the biggest impact. Yeah. So to quote Kevin Feige, he said, Loki is by far the biggest Disney Plus show that's going to have a huge impact on the MCU moving forward. Loki will be crazier than WandaVision, and the audience are going to have a pure cinematic experience. And I mean, the fact that he's saying that, like, that's where I'm wondering if this is either going to lead into one of two things or both. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and there's also Secret Wars. Like we're seeing, like you said, we're seeing more scrolls popping up.
Well, there's actually a reference to Secret Wars in the episode. So it was. Let's see.
Well, they mentioned the Multiverse of Madness too.
Mm-hmm.
When she's talking, she's like, she says something about the timelines will break in the multiverses will battle each other and it turns into pure madness.
Yeah. So they also mention, so the interdimensional war, and then they have the sacred timeline, and then basically like the lesson that they're giving him, like explaining how the timeline works, is very similar to the 2015 Secret Wars comic. So it's like where all the conflicting universes came together in quote unquote battle world, and that was the setting for the original Secret Wars. So
right, no, if I'm not mistaken, too, I think that's where the Venom symbiote first appears and attaches to Peter Parker.
Okay.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I know when Peter gets it, they're on this other planet. He like walks into a lab and just finds like this little black specimen that attaches to him. And that's where he gets the black suit. And then he ends up bringing it back. And then that turns into the eventual Venom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that makes sense.
And maybe that's how they'll bring those movies in. Because if you're at the multiverse, you could have all those Fox movies come over too.
And Sony. And that would be awesome. Like, I'm totally for an MCU driven live action Spider-Verse movie. Like, give me that. Give me Miles Morales. Give me, Gwen Stacy. Give me Spider-Pig. Goddamn right, dude. I'm all for it. Like, even make Spider-Pig fucking like Rocket. Like, he can be CGI. Like, I'm cool with that. I'm 100% okay with it. Like, let's make that shit happen. I'm down. I have one last little thing. It's an Easter egg that was dropped originally in the trailer, but anything that we reference to Loki running for president, it's a big deal. So back in the day, I believe it was 1980s, there was a video game cabinet called Polybius.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But basically, the cabinet itself was dropped off. It was in Oregon. That's where it originated. Was there for a couple months and then disappeared, never to be spoken of again. So very much like something that the TVA would have a holding grasp over. But basically, the story and the lore behind it is it was dropped off in Oregon. Like, this is legitimate, like from our world.
Right.
Basically, it was dropped off. People were playing it. Like, lines were starting, wrapping around the block. People were fighting each other for game time. A kid had a fucking seizure playing it. Like, it's wild. Like, and absolutely. So it's funny that the scene where Loki is walking with his group of constituents, the bad looking dudes, he has a Polybius game cabinet there, which I think is pretty awesome. Again, that could be one of the reasons that the TVA is going after that variant, because he went out or maybe that he stole that. And that's why it, quote unquote, disappeared in the real world.
Yeah. And that's what I liked about the DB Cooper. Cause like to this day, no one knows who DB Cooper was. All they found were a couple bills in, I forget which river it was, but like that was all that was ever found was like $200 out of the 100,000 or 200,000 they demanded. Like, so I like that. That's the way they're kind of playing it, is like all these hidden mysteries in our timeline were like the TVA.
Yeah. And again, that would, like we had this talk before, that DC universe is built in a world that's like ours, but not. Gotham is very, and Metropolis are very similar to like a New York City,
Right.
area, and like there's Star City, and none of these cities really exist, but everything really exists in the Marvel universe. So that is more closely tied to our actual universe, which I think is awesome. So again, all of this stuff that they're doing, all of these things that are, existent in the Marvel universe, obviously other than the characters themselves and like the technology, but like a lot of the stuff is driven from real world shit. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with this. They got a lot of ground to cover, but this is going to drive us straight into the multiverse of madness. So I'm excited to see what the next episodes are going to have, what they're going to bring to light, who the variants are, who we're going to meet. If we meet a Lady Loki, if we meet, the variant President Loki, whoever we have, whatever's going on, like I'm all for it. I'm here.
We could also end up seeing Kang the Conqueror pop up in this series.
Oh, absolutely. That would be phenomenal.
Because I think he's already supposed to be in Shang-Chi, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds about right, to be honest with you. He would sort of fit into that area.
And I mean, literally, he's a time traveler and everything, so it wouldn't be too far off for him to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. I'm excited to see what the series brings. And right now, WandaVision's still holding strong as my favorite one. But that's just because I personally like Scarlet Witch. But and I'm just glad that she got her dues. But I really think that this has potential to be, number one, super impactful in the MCU as a whole. And number two, I think this is going to be what's finally getting us going in a different type of a direction with everything, movies, TV shows, and all that coming out from Marvel.
Oh, yeah. There's so much that we have to unpack. I don't even, again, we're going to do this every week. We're going to give you guys, the day after Loki, we're going to try to have an episode for you guys. And then we're going to try to drop a couple extra little, Easter egg type episodes of our own here and there throughout the week if we can. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and every episode's going to have something like that, very similar to Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision. So they have done so well. Phase 4, they're killing it with the costumes. Like, they are so comic accurate, which I'm all for. They're the cinematic style of the TV shows are just out of this world. And Kevin Feige, like, props to you, sir. But as far as this episode goes, that's kind of really all I've got right now. I don't know if you guys got anything left to say.
No, I'm good.
Jay?
Okay. All
right. Well, guys, as always, thank you so much for listening. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Something Super Podcast, at SS Podcast 52 on Twitter. Please reach out to us, tweet us. We'll obviously write back. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, somethingsuperpodcast@gmail.com. We are on all major streaming services. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We are on Spotify, Anchor. Thank you for hosting us. Guys, as always, I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
I'm Jay.
And we'll catch you guys next week.